Hey, what's up? I'm Sean, the owner and lead tutor of Math Swap Tutoring, and I want to talk a little bit about how I prepared for the SAT when I was in high school. So I took the PSAT twice. I took it in the 10th grade and I took it in the 11th grade. When I took it in the 10th grade, I went in pretty confident because, I did well in school. I did well in math. I did well in everything. I mean, I was pretty much a straight A student, especially after ninth grade I was. So I never had any issue with school or anything like that. I didn't have any issues with taking tests or anything like that I knew of. So I took the the PSAT in 10th grade. When I got that thing back, it estimated my score, well, my composite score for the PSAT was, it essentially amounted to what would be like a 980, 960, something like that. And I was like, what? There's no way. There's no way. Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. So that really, really threw me off. But that said, because I had aspirations, I had, a long desire, a desire from like middle school to be an engineer. And I think around that time, around 10th grade is when I started to know that I wanted to at least apply to Georgia Tech. And I knew that I was going to need to have a higher SAT score than that. So I began to intentionally prepare for the SAT from that day on. Fast forward to 11th grade when you officially take the PSAT, and I was up to like 11 something, or like the high 10, like 1050 or something like that. It was one of those. I can't remember exactly what it was. Still not higher, but still not high enough. Now, granted, I will say that I've always heard that the PSAT is more difficult than the SAT, and I understand why now, because when you are in 10th grade, 11th grade, you're still kind of taking some of the math that's going to be on the SAT. Okay, so that's probably one of the biggest reasons. So anyhow, how was I practicing? So one thing I do remember off the top of my head was that the PSAT actually came with this little booklet that had sample problems in there. Now, based on what I had figured for the verbal section, the main thing I figured from that was to read and to also get a handle on prefixes and suffixes and just definitions of words in general. I had a decent vocabulary, but I began to really look into prefixes and suffixes of words and whatnot. I probably should have just read a lot more, to be honest. I was already a reader, but I probably should have focused on that, reading things that I enjoyed and like really seeking to understand those things. For the math portion, I was just doing problems. I remember doing problems out of that little PSAT book. And fast forward to, for sure in 11th grade, I can't remember at what point, I got a book made by the College Board, the people who made the SAT, and it's like this one right here. Now this is, of course, a College Board book as well, but of course this is like a more recent one. But back then they had a book called 10 Real SATs, and it had 10 full-length SATs in there, and it kind of had other like chapters in there talking about like the specifics of what was on the SAT. And so I was going through, I was doing problems out of the instructional chapters. I was taking tests, and then when I would like literally go into my family, my family's home dining room, and time myself taking the SATs, scoring my SATs, going back over my SAT test on my own to see kind of like what it would estimate my score to be. And I was doing that for a while. I don't remember how many of those tests I took, but I was practicing a lot. I was practicing a whole lot. And so fast forward, I took the SAT 3 times. I can't remember what my exact scores were for each separate SAT, but I do know that my highest combined was 600 verbal, 640 in math, which these days, now that I am out of high school, out of college, out of grad school, and I own a math tutoring business where I tutor kids a lot in all types of math. I see better ways that I could have prepared now in retrospect. But that said, I was a high schooler who was doing this on my own. So if you are a parent who is wondering how your child can prepare for the SAT, sure, I would definitely like love to have your child in my live weekly SAT, ACT math practice course. Absolutely. But this is something that your child can do on their own. Your child can get a prep book and actually prepare for the SAT. Because here's the thing. If you don't prepare for the SAT, it is true that especially once you get through Algebra 2, you pretty much have gone over most everything that there is on the SAT. Now, really, ideally, you probably need to go through a little bit of trig. It's not necessary, but just a little bit. There's even a little bit of I don't know. It's just kind of like different kind of applications of math. You might have some simple probability stuff on there. But the truth is, by the time you get through Algebra 2 and especially some of Algebra 3 or trigonometry, you should have covered everything. But the thing is, you have to somehow remember a lot of that stuff. Not just remember it, but also know how to apply it. You kind of have to know it at a deeper level, so to speak. That said, it helps to be exposed to it for the sake of remembrance, and also to really get the math in you, for lack of better words, so that you know how to apply it. So you can look at a problem and be like, oh, I know how to solve this. And you can just pull the math out of your head for that particular problem, and just kind of know what math to use in what situation. Because apparently the SAT and the ACT, for that matter, are tests that colleges use to try to help them determine who's going to be a good student to admit to their school. Okay. So if nothing else, you can get a prep book and like work problems, see where you are having issues at, and then try to target that particular area, whether it be geometry or algebra or like algebra 2. It's called advanced math, passport to advanced math when it comes to the SAT. But you can see which one that you particularly struggle in and then try to target that. Okay, so that's just my thoughts. These are things that you can do. You can go to Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, online or to the actual storefronts and do that. But the most important thing is, whatever you do, you need to be consistent, and you need to be exposing yourself, or I say your child needs to be exposing him or herself to the math constantly, so that they can get those reps in, so they can just rehearse it, and kind of like not only see what's on the SAT, but also just kind of get that math on the inside of them, so that whatever comes up, they know how to pull out of their mental reserves and use the appropriate math for the appropriate situation and know why they're doing what they're doing. Hopefully that's understandable what I'm saying. Prepare. Don't go in cold. Please don't go in cold. Especially these days with all the resources available, it doesn't make any sense to go into the SAT cold. Especially if your child is aspiring to get into a certain school, or your child is aspiring to get maximum scholarship money, which I'm sure everybody's trying to do that. You see what I'm saying? So anyway, hopefully this helps. Prepare. It'll help you to be confident, and it'll help increase your chances. Your child increase his or her chances of getting into their school of choice with a great scholarship package. I don't say this just kind of like off of speculation. I say this because this was my personal experience.